one. Also, Dave Cushman's website, which I may mention a few times during this evening. So, what will I cover and why? Well, the topics are going to be both in and out of the hive. So it's not just all hive. I'm going to try and cover some things in the apiary, the various systems that we've got, and colony management as well. Some's been learnt by myself, working things out, watching others, and watching bees as things do develop throughout your beekeeping life. Some of the stuff that I'm going to be mentioning may not be taught or even in books. And I sent somebody, or there was an email discussion between myself and somebody else today about this very same thing. A lot of stuff that isn't in books, and because it's not in books or is not taught, people dismiss it. Anyway, that's beside the point. It's really things as I thought about them. So they're not in any particularly logical order, because I felt if I did that, then if I did have to close down for whatever reason, then I wouldn't be giving you a sort of balanced presentation. Some of the things are often useful to know. And you'll never know when you actually need them. You may never ever need them, but it's handy to know. If I did so and so, that's going to happen. Now, like everything with beekeeping, some of the things may not always work, and that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be you've misinterpreted what I said, or perhaps you come from a different district, or even it might even be a different year, different types of bees. There is going to be a little bit of repetition with other presentations because some of the stuff I've pulled out of other presentations, although some of it is new. So let's just look at colony in the spring because it's this time of year. And this one here, laser pointer, we just assume that it's a colony worked so-called cold by. So the entrance will be either here or here. What I'm going to tell you, it will be different if you worked the warm way, where the entrance might be here. So I'm going to tell you about the so-called cold way. So you can see what's happened. The colony is over one side. Now, it's not my colony, but these three frames here look very much as if they're foundation. And it may be the previous year that the beekeeper had put a nuke in one side and expected it to grow, but it didn't do. It's got to the winter. So what perhaps can we do? Well, those two combs there, if it was me, I'd look at removing those, shunting everything across. And if it's this time of year, you can really do it with a spring clean. So clean box, clean everything, clean woodware, and just take the frames out one by one, clean them up and move them across. And then those two frames that were this side, drop them in the other side as a sort of replacements. Now that will allow the colony to expand both sides, whereas at the moment it can only expand this side. It can't expand far this side, obviously, because of that wall there. Now the problem is at this time of the year, sometimes if you get a few days good weather, what will happen is, especially if these are foundation, what will happen is that the colony will bring in pollen and nectar, probably fill up one of these frames, and that will be a barrier for the queen. So she's got pollen and nectar barrier one side and wood the other, and she just would not be able to expand. So at least if you move two frames the other side, what you can do, perhaps one frame at one side at a time, is just perhaps do all sorts of things like turn frames round, and not with brood on, of course, but perhaps food on, And it's surprising how quickly you can get a colony like this to build up. Now, what it will also do is, well, as well as getting it to build up quicker, what it will also do is get the supers filled up from the middle outwards rather than one side and then across to the other side. This is an apiary, and in fact, it's in North Wales, and this area is very, very marginal for bees to the point where a prolific colonies with prolific queens just would not survive. Anyway, the reason I showed this is because the beekeeper colors the boxes in different colors. He's got red, he's got green, and he's got brown. Now, what he does is he flames in rotation. So one year he do, let's say, the red ones, and the following year he do the green ones. The year after that, the brown ones, and then we'll follow that round. Now, I mention it, I don't do it, and I've never flamed boxes out. But for those of you who do, it might just be a simple sort of thing that will help you out. I don't know any good sound experienced beekeeper who uses bee brushes. And the reason is, of course, the same problem everyone else has. They wind bees up, they get caught in the bristles, and they get rolled, and they then get fired up most of the time. Of course, a lot of beekeepers don't notice it because they're often fully booted and suited. But I've been in certainly teaching apiaries, and people have brushed bees, and I've got an absolute hammering. Why they sell them in as part of beginners kits, I've absolutely no idea, but they do. Now, a natural bee brush is just a green twig with the leaves broken off it. And in fact, every hedgerow has got one. And I use them for years. This isn't me. This is one of our members in my apiary, but they're a lot more efficient, I think, and they definitely don't wind the bees up so much. You may wonder why you get pollen in combs above in the box above the queen excluder, above the brood nest. Well, of course, it's because workers usually bees usually only put pollen in a worker comb, and this is what happens if you put the worker comb immediately above the brood nest. You get this arch of pollen here, which that was the very frame that was extracted, uncapped and extracted. So what do you do with it? The bees can't use it. So, of course, you swear about it, put it in the back of the shed, leave it to next year, and it gets completely wasted, and then you've got to dig it out. Now, bees, in general, don't put pollen in drone comb. They do on very, very rare occasions, but not very much. So, this is a drone comb put in exactly the same place, immediately above the brood nest. Now, what they do there is, instead of putting pollen in it, they leave it empty. We don't know why, but in human terms, and I know I keep telling people not to think in human terms, but it's looking as if perhaps the bees are expecting the queen to go up and lay in the drone comb, which of course will be on the periphery of the brood nest where drone comb is. So if you put a super underneath, what is called under supering, underneath the existing ones, under supering is not putting a super under the brood chamber for wintering. Under supering is putting a fresh super underneath existing ones. So in that case, the bees start filling it up, and then they start on the one underneath. So you end up with a comb, something like that. Not always like that, because sometimes the infill will be a different color. So that's the result. Now, I prefer drone comb in supers for that very reason. We don't get the problems with queens getting through excluders like we used to when we had the old long slot queen excluders. It very, very rarely happens now in my experience. So you can't say, well, don't put drone in case the queen gets through. Now, if you've got a mixture, as a lot of beekeepers have, what I tend to do is put probably half a dozen drone combs in the middle of the super and the worker on the edge, and you don't end up with the problem. How many of you have got, or rather had, entrance blocks, but they've lost them, they got in the grass or anything like that? Well, a simple idea is to tether them like this. And then, of course, they stay with the floorboard. And, of course, you get the right one with the floorboard, not one that's half an inch too short or too long. So a simple thing, and it saves you a lot of hassle. When you're putting foundation in supers, at the end of the year, you very often get combs that aren't finished. What I try to do, if I can, is to make sure that when you do the extracting, if there is any extracting, that you put them back in the same position as you did as they were already in, because the bees seem to know what they're doing. If you put this, let's say, on wide spacing, as some people would, what you end up with is this area here where there's no comb this side. You'll get a wider gap, and one of two things will happen. Either if you put a comb on this side on wide spacing, the bees will either extend those cells or they'll build something in the gap. And you can see there that the bees have just started to do that. So if you do get a situation like this, try and keep them on narrow spacing if you possibly can, with foundation both sides, or try and put them in the order that they were, because this frame next to this one, depending on where this one was, will have been built out to suit the bees. So why clip and mark queens? Well, it delays the swarm flying anything up to about 7 days. It also prevents swarms decamping, issuing, call it what you like, on a supersedure cell that you hadn't noticed. And don't forget, these days, since about the turn of the century, very often colonies will supersede, especially young queens during the summer, and very often will only put up one or perhaps two supersedure cells. So, of course, if you go in from one side of the colony, get to about halfway, don't see any queen cells at all, you've got a right just to close the colony down, put the supers back, perhaps add ones if they need it, and go on to the next colony. But of course, supersedure cells are small in number and close together, and they may be on the frames that you didn't inspect. So, of course, then what can often happen is the colony will swarm with the old queen, who may well be failing, and of course, you don't know it. You also know if the queen has changed, and I don't know how many beekeepers I come across that say, "Oh, my queen's 4 years old," or whatever it is. Ask them if they're marked. "Oh, no, I never mark my queens because I might damage them." Well, of course, the queens could well have been changed. So if you mark them, even if you don't clip them, then you know that when you've got a new queen. It's becoming more and more important for the reasons that I mentioned, or partly reasons that I mentioned about the building of supersedure cells during the summer. And of course, it does make them easier to find. So how do I do it? Well, I have never, ever used one of the aids, a bulldog cage or or one of these plastic jobbies. Never ever use one of those. And if there is a demonstration at Whisper Green, of course I don't do it because I've never done it. All I do is just pick queen up from the wing by the wings, which is easy enough to do. She'll then flail her legs around. So I'll then take the middle finger of the opposite hand, let her hold my finger, and then with the thumb and the first finger, just hold the queen by the thorax like that. You won't damage her because the thorax is solid muscle with a hole in it. It's basically what it is. Because of course, don't forget it powers 4 legs and 6 wings. That's what it's for. And you can actually squeeze queens quite tightly. Try it on drones for practice. Then I know this is a little bit of a matchstick. Most of you might have pens, but on this occasion I just had a matchstick. So just mark the queen, and I clip off about 1/3 to half a wing. Don't clip any less than 1/3, lengthwise that is. Don't clip any less than 1/3 because I have seen queens fly some distance that have been clipped. So there she is, nice and easy to see. Cleaning supers when you've done your extracting. A lot of people just put them back, and of course what happens is, because the bees don't see themselves as being divorced from the honey, they'll probably store it in the bottom super. Well, you could then extract it again if you wanted to, but what I do is use a sheet of plastic. And as you can see, this animal food bags are really good. And having 2 dogs, I tend to get rather a lot of these, but they're very, very tough plastic. They're really good for beekeeping. All I do is just put a hole in them over the top of the brood chamber, and then put the supers back on top of that. Obviously, you've got to do it at dusk, but it doesn't take very long. And by the morning, they're all dry. And if it's a nice day, just take them off, lay them down on the ground, let the bees clear. You can actually go quite high. I can go higher than this. I came across this photograph and I thought it would be ideal to show you folk that there's 3 brood chambers there that have had drawn combs built out in. And if we get to the end, I'll mention what I do, which is pretty well known anyway. I mentioned this earlier in the early session where somebody asked about storing honey. If you store honey straight into buckets, you've then got to clean the bucket out, and you never know if the lid is airtight or not. And with the different manufacturers, some of them are very slightly different size. So although the lids appear to fit, they may not quite. And of course, if you get air in with honey, it ferments, and about all you can do is make mead with it, which is not a bad thing to do. But if you want to sell your honey, it's not a particularly good idea. So all I use is a plastic liner, which is a 24-inch by 18-inch food grade plastic bag. Put the bag inside the bucket, and then let the top of the bag flow over the side of the bucket. Whatever you do, don't let the honey touch the bag, otherwise it will just pull the whole lot inside. Right. Once you fill the bucket up, then fold over the top, get rid of all of the air out of it, which is nice and easy to do, and then use one of those plastic twist, plastic, that's twice today I said that, one of those paper twist ties with a little wire that goes through the middle. And I've never, ever had a problem. Although these days somebody else deals with my honey. I don't, but that's a really good way. And as I mentioned earlier, you can get rid of virtually all the honey by, if you can see this, hold the corner of the bag and then with your fingers just run it down, so you pull the bag through your fingers, and there's probably no more than a spoonful of honey wasted. What it does, of course, is it makes absolutely certain that you don't have air in, which might ferment your honey. Now, also, as I mentioned earlier, stacking buckets. I have had, well, I haven't had the problem, but I've seen people have problems when they stack buckets up. If you stack too many and the honey is still liquid, the bottom bucket splits and you get honey, of course, all over the place. So if you get certainly early honey or seed rape, it granulates. Of course, it goes rock solid, and you'll be okay. Checking for queenlessness. What's the way we're always told to do it? Oh, test comb. If you put a comb of a young brood in a colony, it'll soon tell you if the bees will soon tell you if the colony's queenless or not, because of course they're supposed to build queen cells if they're queenless. Well, it used to work. It used to work 100%, but I'm afraid now it might be connected with the queen problems, but I'm not sure. It isn't 100% accurate anymore, I'm afraid. I've got caught out and I've put a test comb in a colony and it's been negative. A week or so later, I've done the same again and it's been positive. There is something going wrong with queens and pheromones, but that's beyond today's presentation. Also, the queenless roar as well. That used to be absolutely 100%. If the bees were queen right, they didn't roar. If they were queenless, they would roar. Again, not 100% by any means. But there's three alternatives that you might wish to try. One of the problems with a test comb is that it's usually put in a colony that has not had brood for some time. Now, you only need usually one queen cell. So why put a comb in and get the bees to build 10, 15 or so queen cells? So what you can do is, if you've got one, put a sealed queen cell in. You can put a couple if you like, but obviously, unless it's a small colony, don't put two queen cells in normally. Otherwise, the chances are the bees might swarm. Not saying they're going to, but they might. So, of course, if they are genuinely queenless, they will keep the queen cell. If they've got a queen or something that tells them they've got a queen, then of course they'll chew down the queen cells. Now that might be a virgin queen. It might be a fertile queen that's gone off lay, or it might even be a laying worker, because they all appear to the bees as if they're proper queens. That's one method. Another method is what's called the patch method, which is a little known method. Now, it's very similar to a queen rearing method that was devised by a man called Moses Quimby in the middle of the 19th century in the States, where he took a piece of comb 1 inch high by 3 inches long out of a colony and cut a hole in a comb in another colony, a queenless colony, inserted it, and of course the bees produced queen cells. Now, whether the patch method is a modification of that or somebody came up with it on their own, I've absolutely no idea. I can't even find an origin of it, although I believe a man called Cox from Gloucestershire certainly publicised it quite a bit. Anyway, if you've got a colony with no young brood, obviously, because if they've got young brood, they'll build their own queen cells. What you do is you take out a piece of comb, cut a hole in the comb. The account that I saw was 1 inch square, but it seems easier to me to go 5 cells high, 5 cells long. Right, so what do you do with that? In that hole, you put a similar piece that you cut out of a young comb from another colony with young larvae. And you need the young larvae for the to produce the queen cells. Young comb, because what's really going to happen is the bees are going to convert this, we hope, fingers crossed, into emergency cells. The younger the comb, the easier it is for them to chew it away to build the queen cells. You then place that in the center of the brood nest, and hopefully they'll build queen cells. Now, an apple corer also works, which I've done on quite a lot of occasions, really. So I'm actually going to call that the Patterson method. No, not really, no. Anyway, if you do it with the apple corer, because the piece you're inserting is smaller than the piece you cut out, you need to press in the insert somehow. But don't forget, you only need one larva, usually one larva each side. So you can do all sorts of things. You can literally just press it in with your fingers or Hive tool or something either side. That should be okay. You can hold it in with a match, a cocktail stick, or out in the field, an out apiary, a thorn from a blackthorn bush or thorn bush is absolutely ideal. Works a treat. It just goes to show how ingenious beekeepers can be. So the patch can also be used for anywhere where you've got a colony that's queenless that may not have very many nurse bees. So it could be a small colony, the nucleus perhaps, or perhaps where it's been queenless for some time, because going back to what I said, you only need a few queen cells. Why get the bees to overstretch them to build an awful lot more than they need, when it'd be much better if they concentrated their efforts on that one or two cells. Now, what they usually do is only build one per side. I've occasionally had them build two, but usually it's just one per side. Now, you could use it instead of a test comb, or perhaps to replace the poor queen in the colony. And I know a beekeeper, I don't know how many colonies he's got, but I think 30 or 40, and that's his only method of queen rearing, is the patch method, and he's done it for years. And he claims it's good enough, and I don't disagree with him. Now, finally, Queenless colony, and I have to say this photograph was set up simply for the camera, but it does show what's happening here. So if you've got a Queenless colony and you're not too sure about it, what you can do is put a queen in a queen cage. So if you've got two colonies, just take the queen out of another colony. And what's happening here? Well, all these cages were new and clean because I was doing an experiment. So I wanted to have I wanted to try and do it properly. So what have we got? The one on the left-hand side has just got a dead queen in it. That's it, dead queen. Now that hasn't got anywhere near as many bees on as the one next to it, which has got a fertile queen, which I don't know where I got from now, but rearing as many queens as I do, it might just have been a young one. The one on the right-hand side was absolutely empty. So that should tell you that if you aren't sure about a queen, a quicker way of doing it than a test comb is put a queen in from one of your other colonies in a cage and just put it on top of the the one you think might be queenless for a few minutes, and that's really all it takes, minute or two, and you'll very soon find out. And then, of course, you can put the queen back in the other colony. Even if you're taking the supers off, just don't bother to put them back, because it really won't take you very long. So that's a nice, quick way of doing it, and probably something you may never see in a book. I shouldn't quote it in an exam, because you might get marked down for it. Now, the Patterson unit has become very well known. It's something I've been doing now for certainly 15 years as a result of the queen problems. And basically all it is a little system, simple. It's nothing new. It's just using things that have happened or been done for years and years and years. All I've done is just put a few things together. Now, this is with the Green Teaching Apiary, by the way. And until last year, we did this as a demonstration throughout the year. And what works well is 4 honey producing colonies. Now, with any of the queen problems, like queens disappearing or queens failing or whatever, you generally have to go to one of the other colonies to take something away from it to sort the problem out. With this method, what you have is what I call a support colony, which doesn't have to be a small colony like this. It could be a full colony. It doesn't matter. And so if you want a queen, or you want a frame of brood or something like, or frame of food, that's where it comes from, not any one of the others. And that works really well. As you can see here, we've got, I think, 4 colonies, honey producing colonies, with 5 supers on each, apart from this one, which has actually got a brood chamber that's been used as a super. It's not a double brood chamber colony. So I've got a webinar on that, I believe, but I'm not sure. Richard would tell us at the end. And I've certainly got a presentation on it anyway. Those of you who use cell plugs, either Genta or Cupkit, or Nicot, call it what you like, for queen rearing, they both say cut a hole in the frame, or cut a hole in a comb, and insert the box. So me being born and brought up on a farm and an engineer and coming from Sussex, I thought to myself, I know what the bees are going to do. They're going to fill the comb up with nectar, and what am I going to do with a cell plug frame, a box with nectar in? So I made this up, and it works an absolute treat. All I did, I put these little slats in with, I placed them out by pencils so that the bees don't build comb in here, yet they can get through. And that works an absolute treat. I've got about 4 of them, I think. That might be another one. That, incidentally, is 15 minutes after inserting the queen in and putting it in a hive. So they've already started to use these passageways, and they've already got bees in with the queen. Right, how do you prevent bees from going home if you're making up a nuke or another colony? It's a little bit like an earlier question we had in the earlier session. But I expect you all know the answers, because you've all presumably been told. They may well be methods that don't actually work very well for me. They may work for you, and may work for other people, but all of these I don't find them very good. This one everyone seems to love. You lightly shake a frame, and of course the older bees fly off, and what you end up with is young bees left behind. That's pretty good in theory, but the people who tell you how to do it never tell you that it's temperature reliant, because if you get a warm day, almost everything falls off. If you get a cool day, everything hangs on. So it's not actually as reliable as these people make out. So I now no longer bother with it, and I certainly don't advise anybody to do it. The old trick of adding more bees, which is another one, lightly shake the frame. But they don't tell you that if you add bees, to look at the frame first to see how old the bees are. It's just shake bees in, irrespective. Where if they're all old bees, they're all going to fly home, aren't they? So I don't take too much notice of that one. And even after 50 some odd years of keeping bees, I can still get fooled by that one, so I don't bother with it. And this is one that I've seen for several times over perhaps the last 15 years. And I cannot work out where it started. I can't seem to find it in any book or anything, but I've seen several demonstrators demonstrating. And what they do is they walk away from the hive holding a frame. Well, of course, a few bees fly off. So they tell everybody who's got their mouths open that, they're all the flying bees that are flying home. If you leave it here for a minute or two, what have we got left of young bees? Well, it don't work quite like that, does it? So I don't bother with that one. How about putting an obstacle in front of the hive? Because that's what a lot of books tell you to do. So you put branches and twigs and all sorts of things in front of the hive. Out come the bees saying, "Oh, never seen this before. Oh dear, I must have moved home. I'll reorientate." Well, I don't know about you folks, but I find it really works for me. And I've tried and tried and tried it, and it doesn't seem to work very well. So that's another one that I don't bother with. So I found some that do actually work, and I'll say fairly often. They're much better. This one you needn't bother with too much if you don't want to. But if you move a hive away for a day, so physically leave it, lift it up, move it away, put something in its place. Of course, all the flying bees will go. So what you got left inside must be the younger bees. So you can use them, and you can shake them, and you can do all sorts of things with them if you want to. That's okay if you are doing a sort of manipulation that suits that. But of course, you need something where the hive came from on that stand to catch the bees. And at that point, you might just as well put the nucleus or the extra colony you're gonna make up. It does work, but you might need to almost find a use for it. One that definitely does work is get a strong colony, get an empty brew box, put over the queen excluder, take the supers off, put over the queen excluder, take frames of young unsealed brood, not old unsealed brood, because it doesn't have the same attention as the young does, from another colony. Shake the bees off, put them in the empty box, put the lid on, and leave it for half hour or so. And young bees from the strong colony will come up, or should come up, and look after the young brood. You can then shake those off into your box. So you can make up a nuke, leave it at home, and you haven't got to move it away. And in fact, at the earlier session, we came across somebody who said they were told that you could move a nuke away 3 miles and then bring it back after a week. You might as well leave it where it is if you're going to do that. You could shake frames of brood, obviously minus a queen, onto a sack or into a roof, leave it for a quarter of an hour or 20 minutes. Most of the flying bees should go home. You've got young bees left. That works reasonably well. Or the one that I like is to make up your nuke or your colony or whatever. Put a sloping board up in front of it, exactly the same as you would with when you're hiving a swarm, and then shake bees off frames of brood onto the bottom of the board, not the top, the bottom, because the older bees will fly off. The younger bees will walk up the board straight into your hive. And there's one that I'm doing there. Not a very good one, I'm afraid, but because of all this vegetation here. But that doesn't matter too much. Certainly, that's a door, old shed door, by the way. Young bees will walk up here straight into the hive. The old ones will fly off. So that's a pretty good way of doing it. Pulled virgin is a term that is very, very rarely used now, but it used to be used by all the old beekeepers, and it's in a lot of the old books. So what is it? It's a virgin queen that's been released from its cell by the beekeeper, and it's from a ripe cell, so it's a queen that would have very quickly emerged on her own anyway. That's all it is. And one use of this is if you've got a colony with advanced queen cells, so some of them may have emerged or have emerged, but the queen has been gone for several days, as you sometimes get if you've got a click queen. If one or more queens have emerged, but you can't find any, so you don't know if they're there or not, you don't really know if the second, or what will probably be the prime swarm, has actually gone or not. And you can't always tell in a colony if a swarm has gone. They still very often seem to be quite populous. So, of course, if you cut out all the queen cells, you don't know whether the ones that have emerged have actually gone with a swarm or not. Now, if you release one or more of these queens into the colony, that is pulling them, and that's where the term comes from, pulled virgin. Now, you've clearly got to cut out all the other queen cells, in which case they shouldn't swarm. I have had, on a small number of occasions, had them swarm, but I think it was getting fairly late in the day, and the bees had decided they were going to go anyway, and the swarm frenzy had built up. But in general, if a colony won't swarm, in general, if they haven't got any silk queen cells. So there's one there, and it's at that point. So they would probably have emerged anyway. Now, drone comb in brood box. How many of you actually do that? Because when I see people, excuse me, doing a comb change, or perhaps hiving a swarm, they give it 100% worker foundation. Well, where are the colony going to build their drones? They need them. Of course, what they do is they chew down the worker combs and build drone comb. They've got to. Now, I've removed ever so many colonies, free living colonies, from places where they've selected their own home, trees, buildings, and that sort of thing. And although I've never measured it, my guess is that about 10 to 15% of total area, comb area, is drone, and always on the, well, I say always, most of the time it's on the periphery of the nest, because of course when the colony is small, they don't actually need the drone comb. So that roughly equates to me to one frame per box. So in most of the cases, I tend to put one drone comb in a brood box. On the edge, not the outside comb, but usually the next one in, if it's a full colony. If not, then I tend to put it next to the brood and then just work it out as the colony builds up. Now, what it does end up doing is give you better worker combs because, of course, there's less need for bees to produce a drone because they've already done it with a bit of help from you. Now, the great thing about it is that you can uncap these combs and check for Varroa. If they've any reasonable amount of Varroa on there, you can remove them, shake the bees off, poke the comb in the freezer for a week, replace it with another one. Now, if you replace it with another one, within a couple of days, all of those are going to be of the same age. So what you can do now is manage that comb because you've got the timing. So wait until it's just sealed, take it out, replace it, do the same again. You do it 3 or 4 times and it should reduce your Varroa numbers down to a reasonable level. And that's what we got. And that's typical from one of my colonies during the summer. Okay, that looks very much as if it's as if it was put in there to replace something else because they're all roughly the same age. But of course, they will be in blocks really, age-wise. Now, removing food from comb. This one came up a couple of weeks ago and the question in one of the webinars. In this case, I've got some comb that I've taken out of a wild nest that you can see has got some honey in. How do you get rid of it? Well, I know some people would just leave it out in the open, let the bees rob it. But if you take an empty box, get a strong colony, move the brood chamber and any supers off, put the box on, fill it up with comb, and you can do the same with frames of comb with honey in too. You can do. I think I've got another slide that shows you that. Anyway, fill that up, and then over the top of that, put a piece of dog food bag again with a little hole in, and that may well have been the one that you saw earlier. I don't know. That's used for cleaning supers. Because there's no frame tops, I'll put a queen excluder underneath this one so this plastic doesn't sag. Put that over the top of the brood nest. Get some frame sidebars. Place around the edge, but leave a gap. And then what you do is you put the brood chamber and the supers back on over the top. So you've then got the bottom entrance open and what's effectively an entrance here. Now, if you cover up the bottom entrance some way so that the bees still think it's open, but of course they come back, land on here and walk up straight into the new entrance. I think the next slide, I've got a board which does exactly the same thing. So what, I can probably tell you. Yeah, here it is. This is obviously a different one, but a long time ago, I made this board up, which is just a piece of plywood with a hole in the middle and some strips around the edge to form the edge of the floor with an entrance there. This is a hinge lid. So in this instance, I've got a super with honey in. I've got the entrance at the bottom open and the entrance here. Don't forget, all the bees have got is a small hole, which in human terms looks as if they think they can't defend because they've got a much bigger hole here. So what they do, they come down, take this honey and then store it above that box there. and it usually takes a couple of 3 days, sometimes sometimes less, sometimes a bit more. I have had it fail altogether, but very, very rarely, and I don't really know why. But this, I've found a very, very useful piece of kit, and I only sort of made it up on a whim. So that is one way, and in fact, I believe I've got something on Cushman's website. I think Richard found it last week. It was. Queen introduction, which is something I was asked about earlier, and I suggested to somebody that they watch this evening's session. Now, introduction of queens is nowhere near as reliable as it once was. It used to be almost 100%, not anymore. Now, I've found it doesn't really matter if there are attendants or not. Some people like attendants, some don't. You please yourself. But just because something fails once doesn't mean to say it's going to carry on failing. How long do you leave the colony queenless? Well, on many occasions, I've taken the queen away and put another queen straight away. You're probably going to be a little bit more successful if you leave it certainly a couple of hours. 4 would be useful. Leave it much longer than that, and you'll probably get emergency cells being built. I very, very rarely use candy because I tend to release them myself. The puzzle cage is good, and I'll show you one in a minute. I like them. They're cheap. They're easy to use. There is one problem with them, which I will tell you about. I prefer to put them between frames if possible. It's not always possible, but I try to if I can. And I used to release after 24 hours, which was fine, but now I'm finding it's taking longer and longer. So I now would suggest a minimum of 48 hours. Now, you do need to check in 7 days maximum. I know what people would tell you, oh, leave them for 3 weeks or whatever. I can tell you that in a lot of instances, even though the queen was still alive after 48 hours, therefore you think accepted, they can be either killed and you've got emergency cells, or they put up supersedure cells almost straight away with, surprisingly, the eggs from the queen that you've just put in. So be very, very careful about that. So I like to put them between the frames like that. Don't push them down against some comb, because what will happen is you'll just block these holes off. And of course, you need these holes for the colony to feed the queen that's inside. Now the problem, if you put them on top of a comb like that, and then the crown board or whatever on top, it sticks down to the lid and the lid snaps out. If the lid snaps out, the queen can be released a lot quicker than you can do anything about it. If she's got, if she's not clipped, then she will, in a lot of instances, fly. And of course, because she hasn't orientated to that hive, then you're likely to lose her. So I would turn it upside down, slide the lid along, and just let her run down between the combs if you can. Don't do this. It's okay with a clipped queen, but not an unclipped queen, because I've seen ever so many just fly out and never to be seen again. So be very, very careful. Now, this isn't the photograph that I wanted, because I've got a much better one than this, but I'm using it to make the point. How do you get worker bees to put in with the queen? Well, the easy way is if they're feeding like this and they stick their wings up. So, of course, then all you do is just grab hold of their wings. They can't sting you. And that does 2 things. Firstly, it's nice and easy to pick up. Secondly, you know that they've got food inside them with which to feed the queen. So 4 or 5 worker bees is all they need. I know John Getty a couple of weeks ago said that he uses 8. If you want to use 8, use 8. I wouldn't go any more than that, I don't think. So it's nice and easy to pick them up, and it's when they're feeding. Uniting. Now, with a lot of people coming into beekeeping these days, they don't always know the proper terminology. And I'm beginning to hear that it's combining and amalgamating and joining and various other things that sort of roughly mean the same. Uniting has been what it's been for well over 100 years, so I'm calling it uniting. Now, I've got an alternative to newspaper that I've never had a failure on. Not that I've ever had a failure on newspaper, but it does mean that you've got to find newspaper from somewhere. So I tend to do it with 3 or more colonies. You can do it with 2, and it will still work. But because I have a lot of nukes, queen mating nukes, certainly at the end of the season, I tend to unite them up if I want to reduce the number of queens I've got. So just bring them together. All the entrances facing in the same direction. That's close enough. That's fine. No problem at all. And the method is you can use it any time of the day. It really doesn't matter. I think it will probably work better if it's flying. But all you do is just move the 2 outside hives back, or if you've got more than that, and we did it with 7 that was for green on one occasion, but they were queen mating nukes that we just wanted to unite up for the end of the year. So you put a board up in the front of the middle hive, very similar to what I showed earlier, and how you would put it to a swarm. So you select the queen you want and cage her. You don't have to, but I normally cage her. The others you can do what you like with. You can either requeen poorer colonies with them, doesn't really matter, or if they're not particularly good, then give them the boot treatment. So what you do is you shake bees off the combs in turn onto the board in front of the hive. So you start with no bees inside the middle hive at all, and then you place the combs, arrange them in the best position. So you've got brood against brood, you know, that all sort of thing that we should do, and then give them the queen in a cage. Now, if there's a nectar flow on, there is no need to do that. And on many occasions, I've just shaken one frame down, dropped the queen in amongst them, and then shaken the other bees on top, and they've been absolutely fine. Then close up, remove the hive parts, because if you don't, it'll confuse the bees, returning bees, and they'll be rummaged around the hive parts rather than going into the one entrance that is left. And then release the queen after 24, 48 hours. I found you're usually okay after 24 hours doing it this way. So there we are. There's the one that's in the middle. Okay, it's been raised up. This might be a different lot. I'm not sure. Not sure. Anyway, and then these 2 are the ones that are being worked on. So literally just shake the frames off like that. And this particular one looks as if those 3 colonies made more than 1 brood chamber's worth. So just turn them into double brood chamber colony. And I found that a really good way of doing it. And it's easier and quicker than uniting with newspaper. When you're driving nails through top bars, don't drive them through from the underneath, because this is what happens, because the nails are longer than the height of the frames. And I can tell you, I can make a mess of your knuckles. When you're nailing boxes together, the nails that you're given, I suggest that you don't use them. Use wire nails, because this is one that was nailed up wrong. It's been pulled apart and it just pulled the nails through like that. Whereas if you have wire nails with a big head like this, that doesn't matter. I put this in because when I drive nails in boxes, make up boxes, I drive the nail at an angle. It's exactly the same as what the old carpenters used to do when they put floorboards down. If you put it through at an angle, it tends to hold it together better. This is a long slot queen excluder, which you probably can't buy now, but there's still a lot in existence. If you remove it by taking it, rolling it either that way or the other way, you tend to distort the slots. But I found if you do it from corner to opposite corner, that doesn't happen. Just a simple little trick. And these are the slots I was telling you about earlier that queens used to get through when we had, if you've got drone comb in supers. Using natural queen cells, I do a lot of talks on queen rearing and that sort of thing, and it's surprising the number of beekeepers that don't know how to put a queen cell in another colony. And it's something that doesn't tend to get taught. I don't know why, because it's one of the easiest things in the world to do. Both of those, I think, are supersedure cells, and you can see they're fairly close to emerging, certainly within a day from emerging. Now, if you look closely, there's a wire there. I've found that they very, very rarely go through the contents of the cell. They tend to go through the wall. So if you want both of those queen cells, either tease it out with a sharp knife or cut one of them out, so that one, and leave this one on the frame in a colony, and you should be okay. Now, I always cut queen cells out, even if I don't think I want the queen cells. If they come from a decent colony, I always tend to cut a few out with quite a fairly large piece of comb, just in case I need them later on. So cut the cells out carefully, handle them nice and gently. And what do you do with them? Well, find a gap in the comb if you've got one, or if not, make one. So all I do is just push my thumb down to the midrib and then draw my thumb down this way to make a depression, something like that. And you can then just push the queen cell in, make sure it holds fairly firm, and you push it in by the comb, not the cell. So you end up with that. Make sure it holds fairly firmly, otherwise it'll just end up on the floor. Now, this was, I know, done for a demonstration. Because you got brewed up against here, that queen cell could easily have gone in there. Here's another one that's fairly typical of most combs. We've got a little bit of a cell cup there. Pull that apart, and then you can just put the queen cell in like that. And anything like that will do. Makes it nice and easy. Or, as I've already said, move a comb with a queen cell on. Now, if you've got queen cells on wood, you probably try to cut them off, and like me, have found that it's not an easy job. Why is that? Well, this is actually a cup, and I've just cut the cut part of it back so you can see what's happening. Of course, the cell wall right at the back, you can still see wood through it. So, of course, you can't slice through there without cutting into the contents. So the easy thing to do is with a sharp knife, just cut them out, wood and all. I've had several people say, yeah, but don't you damage your frame? Well, yeah, you do, but who's worried about that? And of course, that's what you end up with. And that you can then put into another comb in another colony. I've been asked several times how I protect queen cells. Well, you obviously need to protect queen cells because if you put a queen cell in a colony that's just recently had a queen in, they will chew them down. We want to stop them doing that. So all I use is just a piece of foil like that, cut, well, I fold it but into quarters, nip the corner off so I can get the queen cells through. Just wrap it round like that. This is a different one. And then you can put it in a gap in a frame like that, and they emerge. And you don't need West cell protectors and all sorts of things that that you can be sold that people put in a box or a drawer, forget where they put them, and then end up using a piece of silver foil. Greater wax moth in a comb. It's surprising the number of people that don't know the trick of just tapping the end of the frame with or the top with tapping the wood of the frame then with a hive tool, and sometimes you can have 3 or 4 of these little blighters crawling out of the comb. So that's the easy way of dealing with them. Those of you who raise queens and may use the Miller method, here's a modification. It's only a slight modification, but it works. It's for anyone who perhaps wants to raise just a few queen cells, small number of colonies, perhaps only want 3 or 4 queen cells. Now, what you can do is use either a part-drawn shallow comb, and we, as beekeepers, very often get some that are poorly built that you really would like to recycle. They're ideal for this. Or perhaps a comb that has been used for cut comb, but at the end of the season, the bees haven't built it out very far. The next year, it may not be any good. So that's not nice and easy to use. That's an ideal thing. All you do is just cut a little bit of shape in the comb, exactly as you would if you use foundation or a brew comb. Place it in the center of the brew box for the queen to lay in. And then when the larvae are the right age, just cut the comb back to the larvae at the right age. And then, of course, place it in a Queenless colony. And hey presto, you should end up with some queen cells, just like this lot here. This was done by somebody who'd never raised queens before, who at the time lived just up a road from me. She now lives 4 or 5 miles away, I suppose, but she's still a member of our association. And if you only want 2 or 3 or 4 queen cells, there they are, all on one frame, and no problem at all. Shaking bees. I'm coming across more and more people that shake inside the box. Well, I've reckoned that in 56 years, nearly 57 years of beekeeping, I can just about count on one hand the number of queens that I've seen actually killed. 2 of them were on one day by demonstrators, not our demonstrators, but those coming in from outside, shaking inside the box and killed 2 queens. This here is the side of a brood frame. This here is the bottom bar. So this here is the bottom corner. The more astute of you, eagle-eyed, will have spotted already that there's a queen. Now, if that was shaken inside the box, you could have a damaged queen and not notice it. So that's why I don't shake bees in a box, and I jump up and down if people do it. It was for green teaching apiary. What they do at home is entirely up to them. So what I teach and what I do is always shake above the frames from corner to corner. So if the queen happens to be on the frame, she's going to go down in the box without any problems. You haven't killed any bees, and everything's how it should be. Very often, beekeepers are getting the last super of the summer. They haven't got enough either comb or foundation to make up a box, so what do? They tend to alternate comb and foundation. We all done it. We've all done it. And don't say you haven't. Well, unless unless you're so new that you haven't got to that stage. Of course, what happens? Well, bees find it easier to extend existing comb than they do to hang on foundation and draw that out. So you can see what's happened here. This is a drawn comb. That's foundation. That's foundation. All that's happened is the bees have simply extended the drawn comb. So if you are in that situation, then I'll suggest what you do is put the foundation one side, drawn comb the other, and okay, you might mess up one comb, but you shouldn't mess them all up. They're using brood chambers as supers, which is something I've been doing for nearly 50 years now, and it's something that I do publicise quite a bit, because I find it produces far better brood combs than if you put foundation in the supers. And I suspect most of you have heard this, so I'll go through it fairly quickly. If you put foundation in the brood chamber and the weather's poor, bees will only build out foundation if they've got the wax to do it with, and the only way they do that is if they've got income, that is a nectar flow. So if you haven't got a nectar flow, they don't build the foundation out. So what do? They climb all over it. Week of that, you get another week's bad weather, they then start chewing holes in it. Out comes the sun. The plants have got 2 weeks of moisture in their roots, so they're bursting with nectar. On comes the flow, and the bees make a mess of the comb. Happens to all of us. Now, bees draw much better comb out if you do it above the queen excluder, and there's nowhere near as many bees above a queen excluder as there is below. So, of course, there's a lot less feet to climb all over it. They then build them out nice and straight. You can uncap them nice and straight, and then extract them, and you've got drawn brood comb instantly available for whenever you need it. So if you want to do a comb change or something, there it is, nice and easy, and you haven't got to feed like some people do. So the queen can also lay it up really quickly, so you get quicker build up. Also, if you've got a colony that's a bit short of food, or you're making up a nucleus or something like that, and you want to frame a food for it, there it is in a brood chamber that's been used as a super. And you'll realise once you start doing this, how much more flexibility you get. So that's what you get. Looking down over the top, can be nice, uncapped, nice and straight. See what a wonderful job that young man is doing. Extract it, and you end up with good brood combs instead of that. And I can find a lot worse ones than that. Last one, dealing with a vicious colony. I keep being asked about how to do this. And this is how I deal with it. Other people will have different ways of doing things. But actually, I find it quite rare. The number of times I've walked away from a colony because I simply cannot handle it. And bearing in mind, I don't wear gloves or bee suit, just a veil. I can count on two hands, so about 10 times. 3 of them were incidentally on one day, but that's a different story. What you can do is close the entrance up in the evening and move the colony just to one side. Doesn't matter, 6 feet away or more if you possibly can. You need to place a weaker colony in its place to take the flying bees the next day. Right, if the weather's good, you could probably go in there in the following afternoon, find the queen and replace her. But what you'll probably find is that the bees are still actually quite narky. but nowhere near as bad as they were the day before. So find a queen and replace her, or what you can do, and this is a trick that was told me by the older beekeepers, which I've used on many occasions. I don't hear anybody do it now. If you can actually get into the colony, make a protected cell and just put it down between two frames, protected queen cell, sorry, in the brood box. What happens is, in about 80% of the cases, it doesn't always happen, but about 80% of the cases, you almost get a supersedure out of it. And I assume that is what's happening. But that's what the old beekeepers used to do, and they knew what they were doing. Please, please, please don't kill a vicious colony. Somebody sent me an email of not an email, a link for a video recently, and somebody killed a colony. There's no need to. That is, I'm afraid, poor beekeeping. Anyway, that's it, folks. How much have I gone over? Cool, only 20 minutes. Is that all right, Richard?
It is, yeah. Thank you. I'll bring the mic closer. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Right, can you answer the questions, because I'm going now.
I can try.
Go on then.
I'd rather you stick around.
Go on then, off you go.
No, you're all right. Okay. So Rob says, thank you. A1 talk. Let's get that one out of the way first of all.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I bet you didn't. First question. John wants to know what is the fineness of the mesh that you use to strain honey ready for jarring?
Oh, I don't. Well, I don't do anything now, but what I used to use was either the nylon strainer cloths that the appliance dealers sell, which I think they used to be a yard square, but they're probably a meter square now. Either that or plain nylon curtain netting. That is really good. Now, what I did, and have done for years and years and years, is warm the honey up. And I mean warm, not heat. All you've got to do is put a few degrees into it. And what you find is that it flows a lot easier. It goes through the straining cloth quicker. Now, I know it's not a question you asked, but what I try to do is get as much wax as possible through the uncapping device, whatever that is. I see so much wax coming out of extractors, and there's no need for it. And it's because people tend to use these forks. So, of course, you end up with all the cappings going to the extractor. Whereas if you do what I did on the picture, you're cutting off all the cappings, and it's going where the wax should be. So you've got wax in one receptacle, and you've really got honey in the other. So the thing about that is that you've got far less going through the strainer cloth. And incidentally, I tend to use the word strain rather than filter these days. And the reason for that is that there's been a lot of bad press about commercially produced honey with these filter presses, which are a different thing. Because they take out absolutely everything, including the pollen grains. So it's only a personal thing. It's not a concerted effort by anyone, but I think beekeepers should use the word strain rather than filter, because it will avoid the sort of bad publicity, I think.
Excellent. So you mentioned the Patterson unit, so that's the link for everybody in the chat.
Yeah, did I do a presentation on that or not?
You did. You've done that many, you can't even remember what you've talked about.
Well,
yes, you did. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tend to rabbit on about lots of things. I'm told.
It's just conjecture. Next question. Frank says, your hive stands look very nice. Where did you get them from, or have you got any plans for them?
Which ones though?
It was at 8 minutes, so it was about halfway through-ish.
Right. It depends which one it was. My hive stands, all I use are two concrete blocks. They're 18 inches, I think, by 12 by 4, something like that. They'll be metric these days. I put them on end, put a stake either side of them so they don't do a windscreen robber jobby, and then two wooden rails that go across. That's effectively what I use. I think you might be looking at something else. Do you want me to go back or not? I can't go back. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're not quite nowhere anyway.
If he can tell me what's
What they kind of look like.
what was surrounding, most of those were my own. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You also mentioned clearing combs, so that's the link to the article on Dave Cushman. Next question: with the 3 test cages, how would the bees behave if they already had a good queen? And you put,
they ignore everything. I know there is a view that bees come up and try to be aggressive towards a queen. Actually, I've never found that.
Right.
Never.
That's interesting.
Yeah. They ignore them.
Then we have.
Perhaps I should have said that. Sorry.
Well, it's funny you should say sorry, because there's another person that said that you should have mentioned something else as well.
Oh right. Okay. Well,
and that's when you move in bees. If the weather's cold and the bees aren't actually flying, it doesn't matter how far or for how long you move them for. If the bees can't fly, because they don't get a chance to reorientate themselves to the new spot. So if you move them for however long, a fortnight, and it was snowing or raining for a fortnight, then the bees don't actually get out. So by the time that you move the bees back,
the context I used that in was during the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you put nails in the top bar? Says Kevin. Presuming means in the frames.
Yeah. Right. Put the wedge back in, and then put them at a slight angle. I haven't even got one here. I've got a frame downstairs I could go and get, but then everyone else has got to hang about. Yeah. Put the wedge back as it is, and then I put the nail back through from the side at a slight angle. Okay. That slight angle down was probably 10, 15, 20 degrees, something like that.
Okay, so it's not.
If you tend to put it in straight, what can happen is that it can come out of the top the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he asked about, will they try and kill the queen in the cage if they've already got a queen, and you've answered that one.
Well, no, that's why you put it in the cage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then another person asks, if when you're shaking the bees over the hive instead of in the hive, is there a chance that the queen may fly off?
No, not usually. Well, most of my queens are clipped anyway, but no, they go down with a thump. I mean, it's no good doing a fiddly shake. Just give them a good thump.
Yeah.
And what happens is they just go straight down on top of the frames and then walk down. Now, I have heard that people shake inside because it stops bees flying in the air. I never had a problem. The only people that have a problem is they just little gently shake. They seem to be frightened of shaking hurting the bees. Just give them a good thump and then they go.
Yeah. Apologies, I'd only sent you the links. I hadn't sent anybody else them, so I've reposted them so everybody can see them.
No.
You have to sack me.
All right.
Why should I be happy? Paul says, I have a national hive with a wire mesh floor. What do you suggest for winter? Keep the floor open or seal it off?
again, it'd be interesting to know where the person came from. But
well, it's interesting because he says that he did put the inspection board back in, and he found there was lots of mold on the frames. So that tends to suggest that the bees are in a damp sort of apiary area.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I've always left them open. I know some people close them off. I doubt if you do them any harm, but I just leave mine open. Never bothered. If you want to close them off, close them off. I can't see it's really going to cause any problems. Of course, they won't get that little bit of ventilation, but it's no different than a solid floor, is it?
No.
You've got 4 lots of chat if you're.
I think that was me sending those links, Roger.
Oh, all right. Not somebody clarifying.
No, they tend to do that to me in the Q&A. Clive says, apart from a quick view of how many frames the bees are on, what else can we learn using a glass quilt?
Not really very much, but I have to say I don't particularly like them. I've acquired them over the years with kit. Certainly the glass quilts. I've seen too many trodden on, and these things do happen with beekeeping. Certainly during the winter, if you don't get any through ventilation, then I think you'll get a lot of moisture in condensation, unless you pack on top. But if you want to use glass or polycarbonate quilts, please do so. They are quite useful for observation because, as I'm sure I've said before, if you get a biggish colony and you've got a glass quilt on and you get heavy frost, you won't see any bees at all. But you won't see them, but they're down inside, clustered in the frame. Yeah, if you've got a warmish time, the bees are all up over the tops, and you think, cool, they're doing really well. And of course, they're not really. They're just broken cluster or partially broken cluster. And probably what they're doing is foraging within the hive, so bringing food in to where they are. That's probably what they're doing. I first noticed this years and years ago when I used to take a lot of bees out of trees. And in November, December, January, very often you'd find unsealed stores right close to the bees. And then it dawned on me what was happening. In warm weather, bees were bringing food in from the periphery.
Yemi says, after doing a split, I left all the queen cells in. Will the first virgin queen emerge and kill the other queens, or may they throw a swarm?
Didn't we have this question earlier?
Yeah, he wanted to confirm whether or not the first virgin will queen. He's an 8-month-old beekeeper. I presume that's how many months.
Oh, it's a youngster, not even walking yet.
And it's his first ever split. So he's inspecting tomorrow, so he wants to know what he's going to find, I think.
Right, okay. I would normally only leave one queen cell because it's surprising how often colonies will swarm. If you've got a small colony, say 4, perhaps 5 frames, the chances are they won't. But I would normally pull down to one queen cell if you can. Make sure it's quite a good one and it looks okay, which somebody who's only been keeping bees 8 months, of course, must have started about last September then.
Yeah.
So they probably haven't seen queen cells in the raw. And of course, they will be emergency cells, so they will probably look smaller than they should do. Yeah, I would always, I think, come down to one queen cell unless it was a small colony.
Yeah.
But you know, people have got this idea that bees will only swarm on swarm cells. Oh no, they won't. If the colony's in the right condition and the weather is good, they will swarm on supersedure cells. Had it happen many times, and also on emergency cells too. And again, also had it happen many times.
Yeah, I've had a supersedure swarm on me as well.
Yeah, but you see, this stuff, they keep peddling it. And that is what annoys me, because somebody writes it, and there are a lot of fairly inexperienced people doing teaching and writing these days. And of course, because they haven't got the experience and they haven't seen these things, they just copy what somebody else has written. And it's not doing beginners a favour, I'm afraid. Anyway.
Next question. How do you seal your queen cages if you're not using candy? I think they just need you to confirm you're not taking out the plastic.
Yeah, the little piece in the end. Yeah, don't take those out.
Yeah, you manually release the queen, don't you?
If possible, yeah. I've just never got round to using candy.
Yeah. Frank says the wooden stands look to be 4x2 on top of each other.
On top of each other.
I'm going to send Frank your email address. Trevor says, other than moving an uncapped queen cell on a frame, are there any other ways of using uncapped queen cells?
Well, obviously cutting them out.
Even if they're uncapped?
Sorry. No, they're easily damaged, they are. Or unless I was really pushed, I don't think I'd even attempt that. No, I don't think I would, Richard. No, they're quite fragile, you know, before they're sealed. Well, of course, they haven't got the cocoons inside them. That's what makes them tough.
Yeah. Today at my apiary, one senior beekeeper was saying that yes, you can put fondant in a hive when the super's on, but another senior beekeeper saying that you shouldn't put fondant on if you've got supers on. Who is right and why?
Well, only feed bees if they need it. That I think is a good general rule. But if a colony's short of food and they're putting supers on, then why not just give it a gallon of syrup? You can. I'm not recommending anyone should do it, but you can feed through supers if you do it fairly slowly. You don't want to overdo it, otherwise you'll put the syrup in the supers. But in 1976, which I know is a long time ago, we had a drought year, and the bees were just absolutely bone dry, and we were feeding through super. So colony had 2, 3, 4 supers on. Just put a feeder on top, and they were taking it down and they were using it and storing it in the brood chamber. So you can feed through supers. Why are you feeding fondant this time of year? You should be okay with syrup. Well, depending on where they come from, but even in the north of Scotland, I would have thought you'd have been okay now. Yeah. If bees are flying, you should be able to feed syrup. I wouldn't. Well, where would you feed the candy or the fondant rather? On top of the supers? I've never known anyone do that.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that whatever I say or whatever you say is going to upset one of those
Senior beekeepers.
Senior beekeepers, both of whom might be listening. I can feel a pain in my back.
Maria says the fondant was on top of the supers.
Oh, right.
Mm.
Why put fondant on top of supers?
Yeah.
There's no need for it. If only feed if bees genuinely need it. And why have supers been put on if there's not enough food in the brood chamber? Give them a gallon of syrup. If they genuinely need it, give them a gallon of syrup, and then after a couple of days, put the supers on.
John, she says, I can guarantee the senior beekeepers aren't watching tonight. That perhaps they need to. John says, care with excluders. I've just received some in the post, and they are wire with a wooden frame, but they have half bee space, top and bottom. They were cheap, but I'm not cheerful about it. They are also only 450 mil square.
450 is the standard national and commercial size.
So I wonder if he's using Langstroth. And
well, yeah. Well, 450. I think it's 452, but it's 18 and an eighth inches, whatever that is.
That's what he'll be talking about. The 2 mil missing.
Multiply it by 25.4. You can do a mental arithmetic, can't you? Go on, quicker than that.
Go on. 20 what?
18 and an eighth by 25.4.
I don't do imperial, Roger.
18.124 from 25.4. Oh, 460. What did you say?
450. Oh, 460 is needed for nationals, not 450, it says.
Yeah, 460. Yeah, 460.
Yeah. Oh, so it's 10 mil.
They're only 450.
That's very poor, isn't it? I wonder if
it is. Yeah.
John, was that one of the national suppliers? Obviously, I'm not going to share that, but is it one of the national suppliers, or have you ordered them from somewhere else? That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. 450. Yeah. It is 460. 462. And that. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yep. Carry on.
I don't know if you'll know this one. How do queens defecate?
The same way that any other bees do.
Is it just cleaned up by the workers?
Oh yeah. And it's clear. It's a clear liquid. I found this out because I came across a scientific paper on one occasion, and what they were doing was they were checking queens themselves for nosema. This was a long time ago. I think it was a Polish paper. And over the years, there's been a lot of good work done in bee work done in Poland. But yeah, apparently it's a clear liquid. Anyway, yeah.
It's worth coming tonight just to find that out. I have no idea.
Well, yeah, I'd need to check it out, but it's only something I heard a long time ago. Read a long time ago, yeah.
John's confirmed that it is one of the suppliers in the UK. It's one that we've talked about quite a lot. Yeah.
They haven't come in through Northern Ireland, do
they? Maybe. Yemi just wants to confirm that should he kill the queens tomorrow? If you go in and you've still got queen cells that are sealed, yeah, Roger suggests reducing it down to 1.
Yep.
Rob says, I see a white powder-like substance around the top of some of the cells in the brood chamber. I once read that it was Varroa poop. Is this?
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
There is an outside, well, not saying outside chance, but it's a possibility it is granulated honey, the granules. There's an outside chance of that. I've seen that on many occasions, but I think probably Varroa is probably the reason. But again, you need to have a look.
Yeah. And that's everybody.
Oh, good. Okay.
Done and done. Super. Thank you very much, Roger.
Okay.
I'm
hope
just
somebody got something from that. Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know that queens defecated clearly. So
yeah, please don't quote me, but I'm pretty certain that's what I read.
We've had somebody question about your book again. Have you been in touch with them publishers?
No, I haven't. No. Busy trying to get the next one out.
It is still available on Kindle if people want to download it on the Kindle. It's a bit cheaper as well.
Okay, all right. I'll do that. And
it's got some good stuff in it, Roger. You might learn something.